Hey guys, it's July the 15th, 2025. This is Shane's World News Views podcast. I missed last week's podcast, so this is in replacement for last week's news. I'll be doing another one at the end of this week. I will have some news from this week included in this present podcast. So to start off, last week, President Trump hosted Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. They're still trying to work out a peace deal between Israel and Iran. President Trump says it's close. We'll see what happens. Also had 5 African leaders at the White House last week discussing all kinds of things, peace deals, trade deals. So the 5 African leaders and Prime Minister Netanyahu all recommended that President Trump receive the Nobel Peace Prize. So I think that would be a great thing, and I do expect President Trump to receive that Peace Prize. On to some shittier news. We've got multiple incidents last week that occurred at immigration sites, ICE agents being attacked. Alvarado, Texas, you had 12 idiots that were charged. 11 were caught already. I believe 1 is still on the loose. They fired shots. It did hit an officer in the neck. That officer, fortunately, is okay. Also, and that was in Alvarado, Texas. And there was a couple of other incidents. I believe the next one was McAllen, Texas. There were 2 officers shot at a facility, and a border employee shot at the facility, while the shooter, Ryan Lewis Moscata, he was shot and killed, so he got exactly what was coming to him. Also, 200 were arrested on an immigration raid at a marijuana farm north of Los Angeles. As the ICE agents were driving out, they were being attacked with rocks being thrown at their cars, bottles and shit. Looked like baseball bats. I think they were swinging baseball bats and throwing baseball bats at the windows. President Trump saw this video. He said, you need to do what you have to do. Basically, arrest these people. If you have to use force, use force. We can't have this fucking trash that's trying to prevent ICE agents from upholding the Constitution of the United States of America and upholding the law. Okay, on to the next. Speaking of ICE, with the One Big Beautiful Bill, the funding that is going to occur, the money that's going to occur, there will be funding for 10,000 new ICE agents. So that's a great thing. Also, there was more bad news. There was major flooding incidents in Kerr County, Texas. Flooding killed, the last number I heard was 109 people. There was 170 still missing. Camp Mystic, which is a Christian summer camp for girls, like small girls, a lot of those kids were killed. It's a very unfortunate incident. There was another incident also where 3 people were killed in New Mexico. The same thing, more flash flooding. It was in the Reduso area, and there was 3 people killed. But more flash flooding, and then even more flash flooding this week up north in the New York area especially. There's a lot of flooding going on. I haven't heard of any deaths yet, but there may be some. I'll update later this week, but this is a problem. And, there's a lot of shit going out there. Is there cloud seeding and, increasing the chances of rain? And, so we'll see. But it's multiple unfortunate incidents, especially the one in Kerr County, Texas, that killed so many people. So, the best to those families. And, hopefully somehow they find some people that are still missing, but I don't expect that to work out well. Also, Elon Musk is starting the American Party, which would be a third party to combat the Republican and the Democratic Party. We'll see how that goes. He's trying to, apply more to the lower class, but I don't think that's going to work for Elon, but I'm very appreciative for Elon and what he's done for President Trump. And I hope that they'll have everything worked out where they get along fine at the end, which I think they will. Also, an Iranian official last week basically put a threat out on President Trump. He basically came out with a comment that President Trump, even if he goes outdoors at Mar-a-Lago, and golfs, that there's a possibility a drone can come and strike him. That a bullet from a drone can come and strike him. Iran is a bad place. They're also put a $40 million bounty on President Trump's head. So bad shit coming out of Iran. There's still a lot of bad people there. A lot of the bad ones were taken out already in the raids, but unfortunately, the raids from Israel, a lot of bad people were taken out, but there's still a lot of bad people left. So it's a major problem when you're threatening a president, and this shit's got to stop. Also, we'll go to a rapper, Young Noble. He committed suicide, unfortunately, died at the age of 47. He was in Tupac's Outlaws group, so rest in peace to Young Noble. At Gray's Ferry last week in Philadelphia, 13 were shot, 3 are dead. So another stupid-ass incident where you just have people spraying fire and then innocent people get shot and killed and injured, and it's just dumb shit. Also, let's go back to Kerr County for a minute, the flooding incident. I forgot to mention President Trump visited last Friday. He was there with his wife Melania, so they visited the families. I left that out. I'm sorry I left that out. So, it was a great thing President Trump visited that area. Also, Abrego Garcia, they're saying that it's possible that he could get released from criminal custody, and the Trump administration is saying if that happens, they'll deport him before trial. And this guy is, accused of, transporting around kids and, women, and, he's a scumbag. So I think you're going to find out that Abrego Garcia is guilty, but for now, that's the threat that the Trump administration is putting out there. Do not think about, releasing him from criminal custody, or else we will deport him back. So, also, President Trump has sold weapons to NATO. NATO is going to supply those weapons to the Ukraine and their war with Russia. I don't think, honestly, that, we should be getting involved. Again, I've said this over and over again. There's a lot of pollution in the Ukrainian government. I'm not going to keep going into the same things. But I understand why President Trump doesn't want to see innocent people die. He's mad at Putin. He basically said, yesterday, he said, in 50 days, I want to see a resolution, or else I'm going to come with major tariffs on Russia. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully they could get it resolved. Also, National Farm Security Plan is installed to protect from foreign adversaries and ban purchase of farms by Chinese nationalists. So I think that's a great thing. In this country, we don't need other countries buying our farms, people from other countries buying our farms. We need it to be United States owned. So nothing wrong with that. Donald Trump is also threatening a federal takeover of certain states if they don't start complying with the laws better, like basically supporting these illegal immigrants and, going against ICE agents. So specifically, he named Washington. He did name New York and I believe California. So, and, states got to start getting with the program. This is all about the law. This isn't the Trump law. This is the United States law, and Trump is trying to uphold it. So let get with the program. Of course, you got a lot of corrupt people getting bought off, and it's about politics and this and that. So we need to get all these fucking scumbags out of these positions that are in these positions. Also, we've got Kim Saget, who was the director of the National Portrait Gallery, was fired mainly by supporting DEI, which President Trump is trying to get rid of, where, we're trying to make it where everybody's equal, while DEI is basically singling out certain ethnic groups and certain races where you have to keep everybody the same. People should be hired, you know, as far as like, you know, being you know, good for that job, not just because of the race or the gender. So, you know, this person got fired by President Trump because they're out there, you know, supporting DEI. So that's a good firing by President Trump. Also, the FBI is investigating former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey for their bullshit involved with saying that Russia was involved in fixing the 2016 election, which President Trump won. These guys are scumbags. There's a lot of bad things on their names. So hopefully both will be found guilty of this and of many other things, which I expect to happen. These are bad people. Also, the Supreme Court approves mass firings of reorganizing the federal government. So you have excess people in these positions. There's nothing wrong with eliminating some of them. Also, Douglas Mackey, an appeals court, had thrown out a conviction that he had for what they said was him spitting out misinformation for the 2016 election. They deemed it election interference, which, again, the appeals court threw it out. At the time, he was sentenced to 7 months. He appealed it in, let's see, he was sentenced to 7 months in October. I'm sorry, he was sentenced to 7 months in 2016. He appealed it in 2023, and then now it's been thrown out. So good for Douglas Mackey. Fuck Hillary Clinton. 6 Secret Service agents, they were suspended for everything that happened last year, 2024, in Pennsylvania and Butler, for, you know, just basically not doing their jobs correctly. Of course, there's a lot of bad shit involved in that. They're saying that the Secret Service knew 10 days before that President Trump had threats. Corey Competore was killed, you know, an innocent guy, a Trump supporter, and, you know, his family has to live with that. A lot of bad things. To me, this was an inside job. I'm not going to sit here and keep talking about it. I've already given my views about it, but this shit needs to be investigated. People need to be held accountable, plain and simple. Also, and let me go back, suspended, I don't know, that seems too light. Like, I think we need to fire people. Maybe for now, suspended. I heard some are weeks, some are months, so we'll see what happens. Also, we have corrupt judges that are still trying to block President Trump's agenda, where the Supreme Court already, you know, ruled against these judges doing this shit. So this is just going to be bad news for these judges. But we had a judge in New Hampshire that was blocking his birthright citizen order, Judge Joseph LaPlante. There was another judge, I don't even give a shit what her name is, but she's trying to block the immigration, you know, detaining immigrants in the Los Angeles or in the California area in the state of California. So these are idiot judges that are just political judges that are just trying to come in and slow down the process of the Trump administration, which, again, the Supreme Court has already said don't do this to these types of judges, and they still do. So hopefully they get fired. On to the next. We've got Cynthia Gonzalez, a vice mayor in Los Angeles. This was a couple weeks ago. I think I reported this, but I don't remember, so I'm going to say it again. Basically, she's on a video saying that, you know, why don't gang members go and protect their streets from ICE members? Like, you guys are gang members, you're hardcore, and they're trying to take over your territory and take, you know, these people away from their families and blah, blah, blah. This bitch actually needs to be arrested, let alone fired. She needs to be arrested. John Kerry, Democrat, former senator, worked for the Obama administration also. He said Trump was right about the border crisis when he came in. That, you know, from the imposter administration letting all the illegals into this country, you have a Democrat agreeing and saying, hey, President Trump was right. So we have a sane Democrat, along with people like John Fetterman, who's also, a lot of things John Fetterman says is the right things. You know, he's supporting President Trump in a lot of areas. So that's a great thing. Also, the State Department is firing more than 1,350 U.S.-based employees. The Trump administration is pressing ahead and basically to, well, for diplomatic, to overhaul diplomatic corps. So that's a great thing. Again, more excess people in these positions that don't need to be there. I'm sure a lot of them are corrupt, doing corrupt things also. So nothing wrong with getting rid of, people that are not needed for these positions. You're just hiring all these excess people for no reason. Also, Donald Trump, he said that PBS and NPR should be defunded. He basically said they're worse than MSNBC and CNN put together as far as providing fake news. He said any Republican that went against what he advised as far as those stations being defunded, he would never back them. So don't go against President Trump. And President Trump is totally right about these stations promoting a bunch of bullshit. On to the next. Let's see. Khalil Sheikh Mohammed. He was an orchestrator of the 9/11 attacks. He basically thought he was going to be able to work out a plea deal to avoid the death penalty, but they basically said that the federal appeals court, they threw that out, so he could still face the death penalty, as he should face the death penalty for being involved in orchestrating the 9/11 attacks. He's a scumbag. Also, let's see. You have, what else do we have here? We've got, let's see, President Trump, he showed up at the FIFA Club World Cup. He presented the trophy to Chelsea, who defeated Paris Saint-Germain. The event was at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. So the players of Chelsea, they were all jumping up and down around President Trump. I was thinking like the Secret Service were going to jump on the stage, but they didn't. But they were just excited, and that was a cool thing. Also, President Trump, a funny thing, he threatened to strip Rosie O'Donnell of her U.S. citizenship. He said they could basically keep her in Ireland. She came back and said, oh, he's a bad guy and he's a rapist and this and that. AOC, another one that's calling President Trump a rapist. They need to be arrested for defaming President Trump. These are trash people. Also, North Korea, they're warning of military action against any threat from the United States, South Korea, and Japan, following a recent aerial drill by the Allies with a U.S. strategic bomber. So North Korea, they're just, they're covering their ass. I mean, I kind of get that. So, they just don't want to be threatened. So they're making it known, if you threaten us, that, we will use our military. So, I mean, that would be any country if you're going to attack them. So, I mean, I kind of understand that. Also, there was another unfortunate incident, a Kentucky church shooter. These were two different places where he shot off bullets at Bluegrass Airport and at Lexington Church, and 3 dead, including himself. Fortunately, 2 women, I believe 2 older women, were killed. An unfortunate incident. Also, let's see where else we're at. Well, we'll go right into the last thing I'm going to talk about, the Epstein files. There's a lot of things coming out this week. There was reports that if Attorney General Pam Bondi did not step down, that FBI Director Kash Patel and also Dan Bongino, who works for the FBI, will both step down. Well, Bongino supposedly had an argument with Pam Bondi about the Epstein, the names being released. There's all kinds of shit going out there. I mean, you have Alan Dershowitz coming out and saying there is no actual list. Like, the names that are being put out there for a long time, a lot of those names are accurate. He cannot say anything about it right now, but, he's basically saying that there's not an actual list. Pam Bondi has been on camera, not knowingly, being filmed, saying that there are videos with underage kids that will not be released. There's also where Pam Bondi had said that there are names that would be released and haven't been. President Trump has had Pam Bondi's back, saying he supports Pam Bondi, but then there's been other reports saying he's upset with Pam Bondi. So, I mean, you got all this shit going on. Then you got Matt Gaetz was supposedly visited President Trump this past weekend, which people thought it could be potentially, because he was supposed to be the original appointee for Attorney General until he dropped off, and thinking that they weren't going to get the right amount of votes, and that he could possibly replace Pam Bondi. You also have Ghislaine, I always say her name wrong. Ghislaine Maxwell. I think that's right, or Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. She's basically saying she'll come out in front of Congress and she'll tell what she knows about the names involved at the island, and she's serving a sentence right now. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. Hopefully they get it resolved. Dan Bongino was just seen the other day at his position, so that's a good thing. Kash Patel, he put out a tweet at the time. He said, "Don't believe all this crap that's coming out. We're working together. Our administration is strong." So I get why people want to see the list. It was promised. If there's not an actual list, names, they want to have confirmation. So just give it time. Let the due process play itself, and everything will be okay. So that's it for world news this week. Sports news, I have very little. The Yankees, they ended before the All-Star break with a couple of losses. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Cubs. That was after winning 5 straight. The last of the 5th was the first game against the Cubs. Then they lost 2 straight. They're still 2 back in the American League East. All-Star game is tonight for American League versus National League. The home run contest was last night. Cal Raleigh from the Seattle Mariners won the home run contest, so he wins $1 million. Jazz Chisholm from the Yankees was in the home run contest. He only hit 3, the fewest. So that's kind of embarrassing, but it's it does mean something. I mean, it's $1 million for these guys, but it's too bad that Jazz couldn't hit more than 3. No football news, no hockey news. Well, I do have a little. I believe it's October the 7th. The Blackhawks, my Blackhawks, will be opening the season against the Florida Panthers here in Sunrise, Florida. So I'm in Fort Lauderdale. So that will be pretty cool. Unfortunately, I'm not happy the Panthers are the 2-time defending champions, but they are. And the Blackhawks could start off the season 1-0. So that would be nice on the Cup ceremony night. So we'll see what happens with that. Basketball, there's some summer league going on with the Bulls. I think they're 1-2 in summer league games. Not a big deal. Still haven't signed Josh Giddey yet, but I expect that to happen soon for Chicago, for the Bulls. And that's about it. So we'll talk more next week. And that's this week's Shane's World News Views podcast. See ya.